justice for all. So you can see our little picture today is driving forward, because we just need to be driving forward, right? Ignoring the static and going forward like we keep saying. That is our job. That is our duty to do for our clients, to make sure that we are the calm in the storm right now with all the rumors and the falsities, correct? All right. So Real Comp, they had a one-day code important change take place. Has anybody read up on this? Okay, we have a couple people who have. So as of March 31st, so the end of this month, there's a change to how one-day codes can be provided. This is a relatively large change for you who provide one-day codes once in a while. Showing Time will no longer be able to issue one-day codes for non-Central Lock members. Below are two ways a non-Central Lock buyer's agent may gain access for a showing. Listing agents will still be able to create a one-day code using the Centra Key real estate mobile app. These codes can be text or emailed to a buyer's agent, affiliate, or any other authorized and confirmed user who requires access. Listing agents who would like a more automated method will still be able to utilize Showing Time to grant access. However, that access will be through Centra Connect mobile app. The buyer's agent will schedule an appointment as usual, but rather than generating a one-day code, their email address, which is tied to Centra Connect, will be granted mobile access permission. This will then enable the agent to use the Centra Connect app to access the property. One-day codes are not being discontinued. That's the most important fact here, okay? They're not being discontinued. Lockbox owners can still create and send the codes to showing agents as needed. However, they just won't be able to access it through Showing Time. So that's just something to remember when you're trying to do it, and Showing Time won't do it for you. You can't just say, call Showing Time and get a one-day access code. It's not possible any longer, or as of the 31st. And this is due to all the different MLS changes and not real comp subscribers. It's more towards the new MLS changes that have taken place with Gmart in Ann Arbor, and the way that they had to contract in Showing Time, which is very complicated. So I will spare you those mundane details and just let you know that this is what's the outcome of some of that. So when you are going into Showing Time and you can't access things, it's because they don't have the same Showing Time stuff that we do, okay? It's gonna be a little confusing at first, but know that you as the agent can still generate it, which most of the agents were generating them to begin with in our office, but other companies did massively utilize Showing Time to generate those codes because their offices are not as staffed as ours are, okay? So that's the luxury of our staffing, is we're able to get that a little bit more mainstreamed. No scams to report. That's positive. We like that. We did have another one locally within our walls of a buyer trying to, we touched on it last week and it did continue through, of a buyer wanting to see an over $2 million property but would not produce the proof of funds because it was a cash purchaser, would not produce the things needed, and canceled the appointment a bunch of times. This person was realized to come, somebody was able to do some research and see that this potential buyer, or not so potential buyer, is from a northern region in the state and had 4 identity theft past charges and fraud. So be vigilant. It's very prevalent. It's still continuing because there must be some success with it, all right? The bi-monthly all-company sales meeting, April 2nd, that's next Tuesday. We can't wait to see everybody here.
And it's going to be at 10 o'clock, so we're pushing it back next week.
We're pushing it back, so you'll see that information come through in the Monday newsletter. We'll send a reminder out to remind you over the weekend as well. We are pushing it back so that people can get here, okay?
And we're also going to have some food and refreshments afterwards.
Yes, you will leave with full bellies. All right. Jordan.
So for today's very quick little KV Core tip, but it leads into other things. There's an announcement panel on your dashboard in KV Core. And yesterday I utilized it with regard to the weekly insider email that goes out, because I know some of you were saying you're not getting the emails, you may not be looking on Facebook to find it. That Monday email that goes out, super duper important. Everybody should be accessing it. If you're not getting in your emails, I am going through the list, still trying to clean that up. If you're not on the Facebook group, I am now going to utilize the announcements panel on KV Core to get you here as well. So when you log into KV Core, and this is what your dashboard looks like, up here at the top, you will see that there's now a link so you can access this weekly email that goes out on Mondays. So every week after that goes out, I'll put it here on the announcements, so that way there's no excuse as to why you're not accessing the content here in this email, because it is very useful stuff. And included in that email that goes out every Monday is a KV Core Corner little section with the additional little tip and trick about KV Core separate from what I do. So it all is full circle. The Monday email has its own KV Core information, and now I'm utilizing KV Core to help you access the Monday email by looking at the announcements.
See what we're doing here?
Yes. Any
Getting you in the system.
questions? Anybody still think that they don't have the ability to get the Monday email content? Rob and Autumn, they put a ton of work into that every week, because that is the one location where everything is being put into to keep you informed, okay? This week, final week, we have tomorrow, I'm gonna be doing in this auditorium here, Building a Lifelong Career, part 1. And so if people show up for it, I need in-person engagement for the class to be able to be a success. I will be here, and I did run it down in Ann Arbor last month, and the 10 people who attended, they all gave very positive feedback about it. I am proud of the content. I think it's a good philosophical understanding about how to build your business in a way. Pillar 1 is about attracting leads coming to you, and yeah, just getting the leads. That's the first pillar of our business. Pillar 2, which will come as a later class, that's about converting those leads into actual clients, but you've got to start attracting them in order to be able to convert them. So that's tomorrow, 10 o'clock here in the auditorium. Please attend. And then we're also doing the wrap up of the SLAM work group on Thursday. Oh, also today, if you wanted to leave the sales meeting and head down to Ann Arbor, they do have Con Ed going on from 11 to 1 down at the Ann Arbor. 2 hours of Con Ed being offered, just as we had the septic inspections Con Ed here a couple weeks ago in the auditorium. They're doing radon test, or like a radon Con Ed, same inspection company, but a different class. So you could get an additional 2 hours if you book it down to 8 after we're done here. Any questions on the March calendar? Okay. For April calendar that has gone out, we're going to go over this more in depth though next week at the company-wide sales meeting, so don't worry about that all that much, but that has been planned out. One thing I will point out is we are moving on to some KV Core 201 level trainings that are now getting beyond just the basics and a little bit more in depth. You've got to though have the Agent Quick Start Guide complete. That is the one thing we're asking, is do the Agent Quick Start Guide, and then you're more than welcome to show up to the 201 classes. Right now, we only have 16 agents in the company who have actually done the Agent Quick Start Guide all the way to completion. So please, get in there and do that. If you want to know where it is, it's all the way back here. On your dashboard, you have KV Core Training, Agent Quick Start, right here. Like there's,
right at
click there, do that, and then your number will get added to this right here, if that makes sense. So with SLAM, we are finishing up on Thursday, just a discussion about the course overall, but then I'm very excited that starting next week on Friday, we are going to begin week 1 of BAM. We're moving on, And the timing of it will work out perfectly where it'll finish at the end of June, just in time for all of the NAR settlement changes to take effect regarding buyer agency and compensation. This class is going to be super duper important with all the stuff going on. You want to be able to do a better job at actually converting those potential buyer clients into signed contracts, since that's now a requirement for us, or looks like it will be come July. Additional little thing, we all get these little news alerts from when you log into the RealComp MLS. I'm the type that, okay, click the button, I've read this, and just move on. Every so often, though, I do take a look at them. This one here on the AI Magic for Real Estate, it's a class. I'm not actually interested in the class, but one thing they had within it, though, is a content calendar for free for 12 months that you could just kind of see. They included some of the interesting holidays, like Get Organized Day, where if you were, the whole idea of this calendar is to plan out your social media content for a whole year, giving you some additional extra little days of the month to maybe create content for. So I just wanted to point that one out because I thought that was a worthwhile little free download available in that little news thing on the MLS. All right, so important situation. I don't know if Cole wants to jump in as well, because we all need to update our packages again in Remind. So I'm going to show everybody how to do it. The reason we all need to do it is because the LCAR purchase agreement, which we are supposed to be using in our office, that has been updated. Do you want to explain some of the updates, and then I'll go back there and I'll show
So
them.
I sit on the forums committee for LCAR, and over this past year or so, we have been combing through the forms that are provided and have made the necessary updates because of law changes, etc., or things that just made sense. The LCAR purchase agreement, which is in our forms, is not drastically changed. However, there are changes that people are noticing because the placement of certain things has been switched around. The biggest change is that they match up properly with where things should go. Jordan, where did you go? Oh yeah, we're going right into this.
All right, so I'm going to show you how to update your forms, because when you go over here and you have your packages over here on the left.
Can you pull up the forms so we can just show them the change really quickly?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so let's actually then get into the form itself.
If you're still using the old one, you're not doing anything bad. It's just we're swapping it out. Okay, so ours gets branded with Remax when we open it, so don't, it looks a little bit more bare right now, but ours looks proper when we open it from our forms. So if you go downward.
Nothing's changed, nothing's changed. Oh, changes.
Condition, if you go a little bit further, I think it goes into the next page. All of these run coherently together like they should. So if you don't mind going back up a little bit, I'm sorry. So we go from occupancy to condition to inspection. So it makes more logical sense. All right, that's one where you notice that things look different. Where your brain typically goes, it's going to be tricked until it's retrained, okay?
Yeah, because anybody who's been using this form for years, you're immediately going to recognize, after occupancy, we used to have down here the inspection items, and then condition didn't come until like number 13. So they've reorganized it, and so now
it's logical sense, that's all. There was no legal change needed, it just was better to understand. And then when we roll down, we're rolling down to the, keep going. We're going to the splits portion, the Land Division Act. The way that it was written previously was opposite of the way that that the statute reads. So we made it match up properly. However, if you fill it in correctly, you will harm your buyer, okay? So the way that it reads now, this is for unplatted land only. Seller and purchaser agree that statements addressing the following shall be included in the deed at the time of delivery. The grantor grants to the grantee the right to make, and you have to choose one of these boxes, all 0 or specific number of appropriated divisions under section 108 of the Land Division Act. The property may be located within the vicinity of a farm, blah, blah, blah. That is not different. What's different is how this is read right here. This A part, so section 19A. It was read opposite previously. It was against the way that it was written. You could make it work, it just however didn't make sense in the brain and it didn't match up with the Land Division Act. So that is what's changed. But you need to fill this in because if nothing's there, it's not good if it's land, okay? So make sure that you don't just skim right over that. Now, title companies were still doing it that way and not really paying attention to it and doing it properly. However, you don't want to be the one that screws it up for your buyer and they don't get the splits that they think that they're getting, right? Because land is splittable. You buy a large parcel, people expect that there's X amount of splits, and guess what? They're not running with the land any longer. So, Bill, anything to add on that?
I mean, well, if it's blank and it's vacant land, we will probably make a phone call to see if to have something there. But if we get no feedback whatsoever, we're probably going to put 0 in there.
We also added a caution disclaimer in bold. So if you skim through that, shame on you. Caution, if the number of divisions is not specified on the deed will not grant purchaser the right to any divisions.
Sometimes they ask at closing.
Yes, to verify it, correct. However, not everybody answers it properly. Yes,
Is there any harm in just adopting the practice of always checking the all box right there?
You would think that would be, unless it was specified differently, that it was part of your negotiations, but that would be part of your negotiations.
Well, you can go wrong if the buyer and seller haven't agreed to all.
Right.
I mean, sometimes, splits are, especially on a bigger parcel, are important and may be important to the seller, and he or she may want to retain some. So if you're just, uniformly checking all, that may not be the right thing unless you have a conversation with your seller in advance.
So if you're selling a house in a subdivision, you wouldn't be.
All is fine.
Yes, all is fine and it's less. And this is a section of the PA which is often overlooked because it doesn't really apply to all situations.
And it's mostly for lots in a sub, site condos doesn't apply.
Yes.
But for any meets and bounds legal description of above an acre, I would say you should pay attention.
Yes, it's very important and it can be very detrimental if it is ignored. So please, the way that it is rewritten, you have to pay attention to. Okay, it forces you to, which is a good thing. We shouldn't be skimming through and just skimming right over this stuff, okay? But people have become very accustomed to just ignoring that section. And Danny, this is your game right here. You know all about this. How important is this to you?
I don't know nothing. I do know though that the state of Michigan has a Senate bill on the table right now that will completely turn everything upside down on the Land Division Act.
Yes.
And instead of 4 divisions for the first whole 10 acres or fraction thereof, it's going to go to 20.
Yes. And that is to help subdivisions be able to be developed quicker, correct? Make less red tape for them and not have to go through the possible multiple years long or year-long process of getting land developed.
Well, it doesn't really create subdivisions. It just creates the ability for you to do more splits. So, like, if you look at Equus Hills as an example, we were trying to form a subdivision or a site condo with 100 units. Got to be overwhelming with all the requirements of EGLE, which is the environmental thing. So we ended up being able to do splits, like 39 splits. So with this new Land Division Act, if you can do 20 splits, it's just going to make it easier for you do those 20 splits and not have to do a subdivision
Right.
or a site condo.
Right.
It's easier to get splits approved than it is to get a site condo approved or a subdivision approved,
Right.
so.
Danny?
All the divisions are still subject to the requirements of the township as far as access, lot size, and the requirements.
Absolutely. Thank you, that's a good
I
disclaimer.
mean, so, you know, depending on the township you're in, and Danny knows this, I know this, there are some anti-growth subdivisions who are not going to welcome this change by the state, and they're gonna keep their, you know, their more restrictive divisions in place. You know, they may have 5-acre zoning, they may have 2.5 acre zoning, and so it's not gonna matter that the state law says you have 20, you have to abide by what the township says. You have to have the right setbacks, you have to do all this, all the other stuff that the township requires. I don't know if it's gonna make that much of a difference. It may up north where there's not so much regulation, but down here in our townships, I don't know that any of them are gonna really adopt this and welcome it with open arms. I mean, they have their plan and agenda already in place, so I don't know that they're gonna just say, oh, yeah, let's change all our ordinances. I don't think you're gonna see that here.
I think it'll be fought a little bit.
Yeah.
To keep the green space, so. But this,
So now with this updated form, what that means for each of us is that we should then go into our packages here in Remind. And now if you have created packages, if you've not created packages, it's a great opportunity to do so. And come see me, I will show you how to make one from scratch. But if you already have one, let's say, okay, so my buyer package, I know I created it September 15th. So here's what's in my buyer package. Some of these I've customized. These ones here with the little circle arrow thing, that shows that that form has been updated in the system. So my package has an old, outdated version. So I need to click this, and it's then going to switch the form from the old version of the standard purchase agreement to this new one that Elcar has uploaded. So by doing that,
so you don't have to drag it around and delete things. It shows you that you need to do it. Push the button, that's all you need to do.
I'm gonna do the same with my buyer contract. And
So
then
what's the name of the new one?
It's
It
still
is-
standard purchase agreement.
I believe that they dropped the name,
Oh.
they dropped
Yeah, they don't have
standard. They dropped standard and it's just called purchase agreement because obviously standard was a very strange way to look at it,
So
so,
it was.
yes.
On there, there's a little gray box on the bottom. If you click that, it'll do all of them.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And
So,
then-
but yeah, it is no longer the standard purchase agreement when you're looking for it. It is just called purchase agreement.
And the nice reason to have a package that you've created yourself is you can go in and customize. So I can go through my buyer contract, put in here, the 6 months, all the different stuff that I like to do automatically, the $3.95 compliance fee, all the things, and then by hitting done, now it's customized, and I don't, whenever I start a new transaction, all of those things will already be part of the template. That's the reason I do it. I'm gonna update the name to and done. So now, whenever I go to start a new transaction, I can select this package. It's got the updated forms, and I'm good to go. So that is one thing I wanted to encourage everybody to do because of Elcar updating their
Thank you.
purchase agreement. One additional thing that I wanted to just quickly touch on, because I was listening to the podcast a couple weeks ago, and when it comes to bidding war strategies, and you're in a multiple offer situation, you're trying to help your buyers, add stuff to their offer that will make their offer stand out from some of the others that the sellers may be considering. Now, we've all come across different experiences of our own. One, though, that the podcast mentioned that I had not come across, but actually I think does have a usefulness in certain situations, which is related to the changes, in the purchase agreement is in the condition. Upon vacating the property, seller agrees to remove all debris and leave property in broom clean condition. I just sold a house down in Garden City, and the seller was very lax in getting stuff out. And had we received multiple offers and somebody, if they had crossed this off and basically said like, hey, whatever the seller wants to leave behind, the buyers will take care of cleaning out the house afterwards, that would have set those buyers apart in a multiple offer situation. If the sellers are in that situation of having more stuff that they just would prefer to not have to worry about cleaning out, getting the dumpster and all the hassle, if the buyers are willing to take on that risk, you can cross this out, have the buyers initial it, and that then right there in a multiple offer situation can help your offer stand out a little bit. Anybody else have little things like that they've found was a useful little way to improve your offer in a multiple offer situation?
Outside of the ones that we've been hammering for the last 2
Other
years.
than the normal, appraisal gap guarantee, things like that. This was one that, hearing it on a podcast, it's like, you know what, I may start to use that if it looks like the house that we're going to be bidding on, if they have a ton of stuff in there. Because a lot of the homes right now, a sizable percentage of listings are elderly individuals who are moving into assisted living or whatever, or the estate situation, and there's just so many years of accumulated things that the sellers may be a bit overwhelmed in trying to get rid of it all, and this could give them a sense of relief that as long as your buyer is willing to take on the risk of having to clean it out themselves, it's something that they can do that isn't giving more money to the sellers.
You better take if you're going that route, you better have a good inventory in that property of what could be left for you, because it can certainly turn gross.
Yes.
Okay, you may want to put different stipulations, maybe that they don't need to clean it. It doesn't need to be in broom swept. We know that sellers get overwhelmed, and there are some sellers that simply cannot get out their own heads for some of this, and they don't move forward because of certain reasons, because they can't get out of their own headspace. This is a tool that you can recognize while going through a home. Are they elderly couples? Are they elderly and they're going to have struggled to get things out? Have conversations with the listing agent to see if this would, in your brain, be something to apply. This is not a situation to do on every home. You certainly don't want to be left with a house worth of stuff that takes 5 dumpsters and could be a disaster. So you need to qualify whether that would work for you. However, to a seller who is overwhelmed, this could be the cost of their convenience, and they'd be thrilled for it. It may relieve all of the stress off of their brain. Investors take homes filled with all the stuff all the time, right? They do. Leave it, it's good, I see what's in here, you don't need to clean it out, just don't add to it. You would put a stipulation that says, no more is to be brought into the home, whatever it may be. Bill, do you have any advice on this one? Because it could be a slippery slope if you're not being careful.
Being an elderly person, I can see where it might have a benefit.
Yes. You're not.
You do accumulate stuff over 20 or 30 years.
Yes. Basements full of things.
Yeah.
Yes.
It just happens.
There's a lot of estates being sold currently. There's a lot of probate stuff. There's a lot of that happening right now. So sometimes this is very relieving for a family to not have to handle. Okay, maybe they don't want to have the estate sale to get stuff out, or they don't have the manpower to get the things out of the home. This will help set you aside in the right condition, in the right transaction. Thank you. It's a tool. These are tools to keep in your bucket for you, okay? We're in this situation again where we're seeing multiple offers. We're seeing different things. So if you're finding a strategy that worked for you and you're happy to share, let us know so we can share it with other people, please. All right. QR code. Whoever is new here, please get out your phone and scan the QR code. I'm looking right at you. This is so you can join our company Facebook private page, and you can get all the things that we're talking about in the Monday email and all sorts of different things. So I'll leave that up there for a second. Were you able to ping it?
Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. And an admin will let you in, okay? Jordan actually is an admin and he'll probably do it right now. Okay. Lisa Brigado, please make your appointments. I chirp this every week. Oh, do you want me to go back, Nick?
Yeah.
Go ahead. I chirp that every week. Lisa's here for you guys. Joe pays for Lisa to be here for all of us. Your staff partakes in it. Your friendly coworkers partake in it. There's a reason why we're pouring into ourselves. It's how we keep our mental health. Mental health is everything, and mental health is always everything, but mental health is even more important right now. It's just with the arsenal that we have coming at us. Keep your focus. Let her be accountable to her for your emotional success. Okay, it is very important. Mind, body health. Everything is right now. You need to stay in your game. Your A game is needed more than ever, because you are the professional who's going to pave right through all of this and be just fine. This will not stop real estate. You just keep going. Come on up, Alex.
Not Zach, Alex.
Yes, he's going to get me a picture.
Yes, I'll be getting a picture soon. Same thing. If anybody brought declaration pages, swing on by. I'm upstairs. I got some Dunkin' Donuts gift cards for you.
Could you explain to us why you would want someone to bring a declaration page in, so that they understand why they should bring it in?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. So, number one, I mean, it's a price-driven industry, right? Most people are like, I don't care, just give me the cheapest insurance, whatever. So a lot of times, that's what we're looking at, right? It's like, okay, you've been with State Farm for 20 years. I think, didn't you mention like a couple weeks ago that your State Farm rate doubled?
Yeah, just about.
Yeah, so I mean, like that's, so those are scenarios where it's like, hey man, you've been there for 20 years. That's not ideal. Sure.
Mine went up $100 a month.
There you go. So, and
It's with your company.
well, we have multiple companies. So what did you say to your agent, Zach?
I don't know, but I'm pissed off about it.
I believe it.
Maybe
Absolutely.
that he saved you the most amount of money he could. You never know.
Probably should have
So-
gone up more.
Yeah, well, and so I guess that's really what I'm getting at, right? Is rates are going up everywhere. Declaration pages give me an idea of where you're at. A lot of times, like I had a lady call me a couple weeks ago, and I just said, hey, don't worry about it. Like you're good where you're at. You know what I mean? If something changes in the future, give me a call. But like, that's really what it boils down to is if your rates have gone up, if you're seeing these increases, there's probably something that we can do to find you something better. We have the option, or we have multiple companies to work with and things like that. And that's kind of, what we can do that way. So yeah, if you bring in the declaration pages, and then obviously the coverage side is important too, right? If you're running around with like state minimum liability limits, I mean, you guys are realtors, you're driving quite a bit, I'd imagine. If you kill someone and you've only got, $50,000 of liability coverage, it's going to be coming out of your pocket. It's going to be coming out of your retirement accounts. It's going to be coming out of, anything that they can get their hands on when they call J Trucks or, Lee Free or whoever it might, Jumana or whatever. Those types of things are important too. So that's why I want to take a look at declaration pages just so I can get an idea. And then that also has all the information that I need to get a quote put together, a proposal put together, to be able to reach out to someone and handle it that way. So.
It doesn't cost you anything to do it. No harm, no foul.
Absolutely. And, I'll be the first one to say I'm not trying to waste anyone's time. I know you're not trying to waste my time. So if I call or text somebody and they don't respond or, want to talk about it anymore, that's it. I'm not going to hound people. I'm not, as much as I want to say I'm desperate, like I'm not. You know what I mean? Like life's good. I'm doing just fine. Things are okay. I don't need to badger people or bother people any more than I have to. So one call, one email, one text, and then you're not going to hear from me again if we don't want to move forward. Beyond that, does anyone have any insurance questions? Or has anyone had like a closing be slowed down or tripped up because of insurance?
Our company has that many.
And so like that's something else, where it's like, hey, my duty is to get you guys to the closing table. Like that's all it is. You know what I mean? Like it's just bottom line. So people can, I will say I do a pretty nice job of responding to lenders, of being responsive, of getting things handled in a very timely fashion. I think, Tanya, can you maybe dive into, was United Wholesale, did they give you some sort of increase in points or some sort of a metric that they use if you provide a home insurance quote with a mortgage proposal?
It just allows, so when a preliminary closing disclosure is issued, you have to have insurance. So they like to have them up front so that we can issue that CD early on in the process, where when that whole process developed several years ago, everybody thought it was going to, roll down closings, and it doesn't, because we can do them fairly early. But we are asking people definitely to get into their insurance early. It's beneficial to submit it with the initial package, even if it's just a quote. So, obviously the quote, the monthly premium impacts payment, and a lot of people are trying to go to their max for price range, so it certainly can affect someone. I mean, I was shocked when I had somebody's insurance come in like at $3,300 a couple weeks ago, when most policies come in under $2,000, and I don't know the rhyme or reason for it. I suggested he get another quote. He said he would after he closed, but it took so long to get that one. He wasn't going to dial into it right away. And it's taking a long time for people. So I tell them, do your inspection and then immediately call your insurance agent.
Perfect. Yeah.
Or
So that kind of plays right into my hand. That's what I'm saying. You know what I mean? It's like, look, we can get those turned around relatively quickly, and it's just basic information. Sure.
We had one where we had to delay closing a day, so his insurance rates would drop about $1,000 or $2,000.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's
Just in one day.
some sort of an advanced quote discount or something, yeah, absolutely. So that stuff happens all the time. So it's definitely something to advise your buyers, reach out to me. And again, it's very basic information. If I've got name, birthday, current address, and purchase address, I can at least get you a rough idea of about where we're going to come back. So that's keeps it pretty simple. Obviously, I can use Zillow and all these tools to find some more home information and things like that. But yeah, that's what I got. So if anybody else's bracket is busted like mine, bring in some declaration pages. At least I can get you your $20 back through Dunkin' Donuts gift cards. I appreciate it very much. Thank you guys. And just a quick update for Zach and I. We are going to make it a point to be here more often. So I'll be here on Tuesdays and Fridays. Zach will be here Monday and Thursday. So if you're here on Wednesday, sorry you're missing us. But beyond that, yeah, we're going to try and make it a point to be, have a little bit more of a presence here in Brighton. So.
And a reminder, they are moved to the main floor across from Tanya. So we are all of our services are right in the same areas there.
Main floor, we're up there. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. The restrictions for conditions on homes is becoming so tight on insurance, and we keep harping this, and it's not just because we have BGM, it's because it's slowing down processes. It's making it to where sometimes those houses become unaffordable because that payment's gone up monthly too much, and it throws them out of their ranges. These are things to really, if you're unsure of a home because of X, Y, and Z, shoot a text message over to Alex or Zach and say, hey, how does this look to you? Correct? You can take a look at that and say, ooh, we may want to dig further into this, or hey, don't worry so much about that. Because things do affect more than they ever have before, and it's going to continue to go down this line and get tighter and tighter and tighter through. Condition matters a lot. Trees matter so much right now. Trees over homes, dead limb parcels, dead sections, whatever it may be. Think about this stuff, okay? Take a look at some of these things when you're showing homes. Think a little differently. Yes, you're not paying the bills, we understand, but you need to be looking for potential hurdles or things to give advice on. If you're looking at a home with a buyer that's already at the peak of their range and you're seeing all these anomalies around going, oh man, this is gonna be tough. You have to start adding those things up in your brain and doing some research for your buyers, okay? Now, like I said, you're not the one purchasing it, but however, you may get them 3 quarters down the road, 3 weeks into a file, and you may find that there's a hurdle, a giant hurdle that maybe can or cannot be overcome. So things to think about when you're listing a property, more so even just as important as working with the buyer. When you are listing a property, look around and see what types of hurdles are coming through. Do you have a home that already has some issues, that maybe is going to have some issues already, and you see that there's things that, what can the seller do to make this less cumbersome for the sale, okay? Think differently when you're going to these properties. This is your job. This is your duty, as this is why they hire you. This is why they're paying you commission, correct? Commission's the most nasty word being talked about right now. It doesn't have to be nasty though. You're still going to get paid because you're going to advocate for yourself and you set your own standards. Okay, you don't work for free. Because what happens if you work for free? No, you know.
Get what you pay for.
Pardon?
You get what you pay for.
Yes, nothing of nothing is nothing. Okay? Tanya, come be a bright shining star.
Good morning.
She's the bracket queen. Thanks for you and Andrew organizing all that. Everybody's having a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, and Nicole's leading so far, so you have to
Wow, I have no idea.
So, wanted to chat about kind of some of the verbiage now and going forward, or maybe not even effective until the summer, in relevance to commissions being maybe part of the contract. So, example number 1, seller agrees to pay X amount of dollars at closing to be used towards any of the following: purchaser's closing costs, prepaids, escrows, or rate buy down. That's pretty typical, standard verbiage that we've seen for a long time. Notice it says nothing about commissions. So if it didn't say anything about commissions, it would not be able to cover commissions. Next example, seller agrees to pay X amount of dollars at closing to be used towards any of the following: purchaser's closing costs, prepaids, escrows, agent commissions, or rate buy down. So that means it could be used for any of those items, including your commissions. Next example, seller agrees to pay the buyer's agent X% of the sales price at closing. So the seller will pay the buyer's agent. So they're not giving the buyer the money to pay the agent, they're gonna pay the agent directly, so that's not a concession. So that is a method of allowing your buyer to still have concessions towards their traditional closing costs. And I think that probably some variation of that is probably what we're gonna end up seeing, so that we don't have buyers capped out, since there's caps on all the programs. The last one, seller agrees to pay the buyer's cost to their agent in the amount of X dollars, which is a concession. So the thing we have to keep in mind is, what are your concession maximums? So on conventional loans, most people who need concessions are those with lower down payments. Those with 0 to 9.999% down can only get 3% in concessions. So if that 3% is going towards commissions, they can't get money towards anything else. So it's going to be pretty pertinent. Larger down payments, you can get larger concessions. So like at 10% down, somebody could get 6% concessions with conventional. At 25% down, they could get 9%. You can only see a whole lot of that. VA, you cannot have the buyer pay any sort of commission. And that's why any VA deals we've done in the past, they can't even pay that $295 or $395 fee, because that is considered a form of a commission. So Mortgage Bankers Association is one of the associations, obviously, that we work through or work with or follow or have membership to. So they have already sent like a plea to Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, and seeking to see if seller concessions can be increased from the standards that we've seen for so long. Personally, I don't see it changing, or if it does, I think it would be a long time down the road. There also is a request already into the Veterans Affairs to ask them that they would allow for a buyer to pay commissions. I initially read that that would probably be reviewed maybe in the next 1 to 2 years. So that would not be something that would take place very immediately. So we have to start thinking about, let's assume none of these things take place, how are we going to handle it? And I personally, like after reading a lot of things, one of the things I thought about was pretty interesting, is that if you, let's say Pam is an agent, and she had an agreement and she wanted to be a discount broker, and she signed a buyer-broker agreement that said she will work for them for 1%. Well, if you, Kevin, had a listing and your seller agreed to pay 3%, Pam's already agreed to 1%, so she can't take 3%. So I think it'll alleviate people from trying to be that discount buyer broker, because I think most of the professionals in the industry are going to continue working with that standard with their sellers, that they're going to pay full commissions as they always have, or whether you want to call it the buyer paying, the seller's paying, but work with that 6%, so both agents are paid what they're worth. So I think that may keep some of those discount buyer brokers at bay, because they'll miss out on potential opportunities on homes that would actually offer more. So I guess we'll see, everybody will see how this all pans out, but things to think about. And then the other thing too, obviously concessions can be listed in the multi-listing, so you can list concessions, can't list commissions. So I think there's a lot yet to be
worked through. I know the Department of Justice is who has to finalize and move this forward in July. The Mortgage Bankers Association, they strongly believe that there may be some revision, and any revision would cause delay. So we never know, but we obviously need to prepare for what may take place in July. So, verbiage I think is going to be key with your contracts. Some of this is standard verbiage. Sometimes you just have to think about what additional verbiage, more is better, I guess. You know, you can say closing costs, prepaids, escrows, rate buy down, commissions. You can say all those things and only being paying for one thing or two of those things. So it's better not to exclude something that may be a key component in getting them financed. And the final thing, when I think about the fact that with all mortgages, we have to verify the buyer's funds. So bank statements obviously are the way we do that. If you have an agreement with a buyer that they'll pay you 3%, let's say they think, you know, let's say they're buying a $500,000 house and they're putting $200,000 down and they think, well, I'm gonna get the house for a little bit better price, so I'll go ahead and I'll just pay you the commission. Let's not even throw that into the offer. It may look a little bit better. Keep in mind, if it's not in the offer, we as the lender won't know about it. So if I'm doing an estimate that this buyer is gonna need $118,000 at close and suddenly they need another 3%, because that buyer broker agreement's not on the purchase agreement, it's something you've agreed with them, we could have delays in closing. So it's going to be very key on communicating, make sure all parties are aware of really what is involved with funds. Funds are huge, a huge piece of this. And then if somebody is borrowing funds, as you know, gift money, I shouldn't say borrowing, getting gift money or taking money out of a 401k, if we're 4 days from closing and the title company is providing final figures and now all of a sudden we see a commission listed on there, if they've already taken money out of the 401k, how long do you think it's going to take to get additional money out of 401k? So just be very sure to communicate any terms that are on the contract or with the buyer, with the lender, so that we are preparing and vetting things earlier on in the process. That's all I got.
Thank you. Bill, can I make an ask of you?
Well, she mentioned one that I was gonna bring up, which is the, you take a 1% buyer broker contract and all of a sudden you're being offered 3%, you can't accept it. That is the law based on the statute of frauds. I mean, you can only take what your contract allows you to take. So if you're gonna go in, you know, I can talk my buyer into 1%, I can't talk him into 3%. Well, you better be happy with that 1%, because that's all you're gonna get.
Can you adjust your buyer broker agreement?
If the buyer agrees to it.
Correct, right.
The other thing I'm starting to hear from Kevin and some others is the whole idea of doing a one-day buyer broker contract so that you can get in the house, because listing agents are going to want to know that you have a buyer broker contract before they let you in their house. And so people are going to do a one-day one.
Yes. We were going to dive further into that.
That's okay. It's not illegal. It's totally okay. But I'll use an old reference for us older people. Riddle me this, Batman. What's going to happen when you get in to show the home? They want that home, and they won't sign a new buyer broker contract with the proper commissions. You are going to be in trouble, because you can't force them, you can't hold a gun to their head, and they still want that home, and you're still their buyer's agent, and they won't sign a new contract. It's going to be very messy. And they could go to the seller directly and cut you out. So
protect yourself.
Just be aware that those, I get it, that the 1 day and the low commissions.
But don't you have, isn't there a protection period in there? If you've shown them the home, isn't there some sort of a protection period in there if they were to go back and buy that home within X amount of days? Yeah.
Well, it's up to whatever you put in.
Right.
Yeah, it's whatever you negotiate with them at the time.
Right, so if you're putting it in, if you're covering it for 1 day, but however, if you go back and buy this home without me, I'm still going to get paid from you one way, shape, or form.
Right.
Yes.
But just be aware, low commissions, short buyer broker contracts will lead to problems.
And we know sometimes you need to earn trust, and we were going to get to that further through. Thank you, Bill. because the trust has to be earned sometimes, and people are a little weary right now because unfortunately the arsenal of media that is out there. And one thing I want to caution you to is, thank goodness we surround ourselves with beautiful team members like Tanya, because and I'm going to pinpoint it, there are lenders out there that are claiming to know better about this lawsuit than all of you professionals out there, and that's a bunch of BS, and that needs to get silenced. However, we're not going to be able to do that. But don't get involved with the chatter, don't get involved with the drama, let them weed themselves out because they look like a bunch of morons right now. But there are people standing on platforms that are going out thinking that they know more about this than we do. They don't, because they're not living and breathing it every single day, okay? Don't let that affect your business, your mindset, or anything. Don't let it devalue you for what you are. Those are nothing but ambulance chasing jerks, for a lack of better terms. I'm angry and I'm choosing my words wisely. So, Joe.
I think there's just a lot of hype around all this.
Yes,
I think
and
if
it
we
will
just
calm down.
stay focused and
Yes.
keep doing real estate the way we've been doing it for the last 30 years.
Yes.
Or 100 years,
Yes.
whatever. I think it'll be fine.
Bill, if I bring this to you, can we clean this up into how we would want to see this in purchase agreements so we can give examples out to agents, whether listing or selling?
Well, the third bullet point is the one I think that we would use most often.
Right, we just have to clean it up a little bit.
So sure, I mean, that's one that's,
so we'll get it, we'll get this cleaned up and we'll circulate examples of terms to put into contracts to help assist with this.
Our paragraph that we've already come up with
is very good.
Very close to that.
Very close.
Anyway.
Yes, very, very close.
It says in it, I believe, that it's not meant to be a concession.
Correct, it does. Correct, so we do have this one covered. This is in our forms already, and we can circulate it. Dan?
Yes, Joe mentioned continue doing business like we have been doing business. And in general, I agree with that. Has nobody been getting any pushback from the sellers? Because we have one exclusive property right now, and they want to only offer 1%. All of a sudden, since the NAR settlement last week.
Yes.
And is anybody else getting that kind of pushback?
What is it they don't want to pay?
They don't want to pay the buyer's agent.
1%.
Which you had to fight hard to get it up to 1%, if I remember correctly from our conversation.
Yeah, she was okay with 1%.
Okay, good.
But she's got a nephew that's an attorney that's interpreted her ear.
And he doesn't understand the lawsuit either.
And she's happy to pay us our 3%. But she is convinced that she shouldn't have to pay anything or only 1% to the buyer's agent. So what do we do as a team that has a reputation for getting full commissions? But yet, this is a highly saleable property in the 700 range, and we want to get our 3%.
Well, the struggle is who the buyer's agents are that are coming to you. You know, if you can't talk your seller into it, and I trust you have used all the techniques that you've used for 20 years to get her to pay, then you're, then you're left with, the buyer's agents are going to have to know going in that, they're going to get 1% from you, and if they have a 3% buyer broker contract, you're not going to be able to help them. They're going to have to get the other 2 from that buyer, and that's going to, if you can't convince her that restricts her market, then it is what it is. I mean, I don't know what, there's no magic that you can tell her, I don't think.
There's no cheating the system on this one.
We don't want people.
We don't want to dive the market. Yeah, we don't want to dive the market.
Yeah, no, I get it, but I don't think there's magic to it other than what I just said. You're gonna hurt your market. You're gonna reduce the number of people who are gonna come see that house.
So with that, I mean, so if I'm a buyer agent, and I'm a strong buyer agent, by the way, and I'm gonna come to you and I'm gonna put seller agrees to pay the buyer agent this, and I would think that if, just with the reputation of good buyer agents and good seller agents, but again, you're listing agents, but you're falling right there because of the seller, but she should recognize when she gets offers that they're gonna be offers like that, and she's gonna have to decide, oh, well, they want you to pay. And I would think that you'd have an overwhelming response of that versus people just rolling over and saying, oh, well, I guess you're gonna have to pay. I think that it's just being strong. And
I feel most, you will be able to overcome it in most situations. You will always have the anomaly that will not comply. Or will not, they're complying with the law. They will not see it the way that we're hoping they will see it.
So some of the listings that we've been interviewing lately, watching, I don't know what news source, they think it's illegal for them to offer.
Correct. This is the misconception.
Okay. So now I'm in the uncomfortable territory. I should just provide them the facts and links and stuff like that, but you know, it's case by case.
It is right now.
There's a
so
lot
fresh.
of misinformation out there, right? And so I just figure we're gonna have to take each case, each seller is gonna be handled differently, each buyer is gonna be handled differently. We just met a brand new buyer the other day, doesn't have a lot of money, right? First time home. We brought him back here to the office, sat him down, we talked about the changes in that, signed the buyer's agency, and said, you know, Teresa and I will work with you on whatever house we find and just try to negotiate
it out the best you can.
basis, because he's not gonna be ready until August.
Right.
So that's when
He can save his pennies for commission if he needs to.
Well, the problem that you have with somebody like Dan's customer,
Correct.
I mean, they are at a certain price point, which means that they have lawyers available to them, and I understand it's her nephew, which adds to his credibility for her. And the reality of her nephew is probably does one real estate transaction a year and just kind of watch CNN or whatever news source, and that's where he's getting his information. And that's a big thing to overcome, is all the news sources that are saying it's illegal or whatever they're saying. So I agree with you, Margaret. We're gonna have to be strong and educate these people as we move forward. But I think you're gonna get a lot of pushback as it gets closer.
Hypothetically, Bill, should we have these lovely addendums that are being created with the verbiage in our listing presentations to show the sellers what will be presented and the expectations coming through?
Yeah.
Yes.
Sure.
So 1%, you can't even afford to get professional pictures.
They're paying 1% to the buyer's agent, not the listing agent.
So could Margaret?
3% to the listing side on this.
She's hurting themselves.
Yes, correct.
And sure.
And the influence of an attorney in someone's brain, especially a family member, is very overwhelming, I would feel.
What I keep hearing in my head, what Bill Russell used to always, this too shall pass.
Yes, and the dust is settling. It really is starting to slow down, but you are going to have these situations. This is the new reality, correct? We are not legally able to create a company policy to tell you differently if somebody wants to do that. However, you can have your own commissions that you charge, okay? You can choose, which is not always the most good feeling. You can choose to not take the listing, but that would be silly because you're being paid. So then in this instance, unfortunately, the buyer's agent's going to have to figure out either A, how to negotiate it in the purchase agreement, or B, that the buyer's going to be paying it because of undue influence.
She's presented with, you know, a full price offer, and it has that language that seller agrees to pay buyer's agent 3% of the sales price at closing. Is she going to blow up the deal over that language?
You don't know. You won't know until you get there, unfortunately.
That's where the rubber is gonna meet the road, is the offer.
That's the problem, is the attorney nephew. That is the problem, which we know that already.
It's a shame, our whole career, like going to Dan, you know you're getting a commission.
Who's been doing real estate longer than that nephew's been an attorney, I can guarantee that.
I've never thought about it. When you go to him, you're getting a commission,
Yes.
and now
Yes.
they're gonna run it for you.
Yes.
Nobody's gonna sell it.
No, you never had to think about getting, whether or not you were going to get paid.
Just like
And
that
now it's a
language of
different
the
system.
seller
But
agrees
in
to
this
pay
market,
buyer's
it will
agent
sell.
blank of
If
the
this market changes, goes more neutral,
Yes.
all this guy.
Correct, and it is going to end, I mean, we're seeing the trends where markets cycle. We're going to eventually cycle into a more neutral market. We're going to cycle in potentially into a more buyer's market. But there's the potential for that, right? There's a lot of unknown out there right now economically. And I'm going to say this again, even with me saying that, real estate transactions still happen every single day, so don't panic. However, this mentality of a buyer or a seller not wanting to pay is going to shift. It's going to have to shift because they're going to be forced to shift by the requirements of what buyers are willing to do. We're in a very gray, ugly period because of it just happening so recently and so much arsenal against what compensation really, how it's really being driven. Danny.
I think this is a good time to up your game as far as your service and communication skills. And there may be a weakening of the herd.
Yes.
And the agents that take a listing, stuff a sign in the yard.
Yes.
Hope it sells.
Oh, it sells.
That could change, and the real sharp realtors are gonna get more busy and more money. The ones that communicate the best, like best service.
Yep.
Will suck up all that money that the poor agents will be leaving because they are down flipping burgers.
Surround yourself with partners that advocate for your client and for you. Here's a terrible example of an agent that was not advocating.
But
Different
after a bunch
county
of showings, he's gonna be able to say, why didn't anybody make an offer on my house? Because they don't work for free.
Correct.
And
it may
agents are
take
humans.
that.
Do you work for free? Does your son, your lawyer work for free? They don't work for free. Nobody's gonna make an offer on these houses.
And I understand, Dan, what you're saying. You don't want to be the one that puts the one on that. I get that, 100%. I would feel that way too, because that is something that has been so against the grain for 20-some years.
Somebody will.
Well, and right
else will do it.
now in this period, he's gonna post one on Realcom.
Yeah, and they're
so
going to
so it's gonna hurt her marketing, and you're gonna be able to show that probably pretty quickly.
Yeah.
That is until compensation is removed from the MLS. When that happens, potentially in July, unfortunately, it is visible.
In the agent
It's
remarks,
visible.
can I put my seller watched the news and they're dumb and I'm sorry?
No, I don't think you should. Your seller may not appreciate
My seller
that.
bumped their head and I'm sorry, don't make an offer on this house.
However, it may take a lot of phone calls. It may, and Dan, I wish I had a magic pill for you to tell you something differently. I really do. Okay. Okay.
They're gonna call you, Dan, and you just gotta tell them. I'm guaranteed this house is not gonna sell. You're not-
For so many reasons, we are not able to dictate company policy is X any longer. And we're just in that position. Because would we love to do that? Of course we would. Because then you could go at them and say, look, our company policy is this, I'm sorry, but this is our standard and this is why we provide good services. You know all this dialogue already, you've been saying it. So your back is unfortunately against a wall of what direction you go with it. I highly, 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 highly encourage you to include the examples of the addendums that are being written. Pull them from every avenue. Pull them from every association you can get access to. Put 20 of them in if you need to. Showing that seller, this is what we're using to overcome this. You're going to see these coming at you. You may just want to be the one that offers the compensation off the gate because ultimately you're going to have it coming at you, okay? That is a tool for you to be able to use. You're not strong-arming them, you're showing them reality. Michigan Realtors has come up with one. You're gonna see one come out from Realcom. We have one. We'll probably have 2 or 3 different versions of it stating it very minor little changes that change certain things. Put this in your arsenal. Yes, it's for the purchaser, for the buyer. However, use it in your listing packages to work and help you as a tool. These are things you can do to help yourself and hopefully overcome. There will always be the anomaly that you cannot, that's just life, right? It's with any situation in commissions. We still get, previously it was the phone calls, hey, my seller's only willing to pay 2%, what am I gonna do? They only wanna pay 5% listing, I'm not taking less than 3. Your back's been against these walls many times, it just looks a little differently now. I saw a hand. No? Maybe I didn't, okay.
Well, aren't these, like his deal, aren't they gonna force the buyer to just come right to him?
Yeah, they will.
Well, if that happens to me,
Potentially it does, yeah. So in that case, it doesn't work against him.
And I only offer 1%, and then his buyer comes to me, I promise you I'm paying them that money. I don't care. It's just, you can't do that. There's gotta be some honor amongst the thieves.
Correct.
Especially in our own house.
Yes.
They're making it a dog-eat-dog world.
It's going to settle down, and there's going to be some changes, and some of it's going to hurt, some of it's not going to hurt, and we're all just going to keep doing real estate.
The United States said realtors should lower their commission to help people buy houses. I sent you that video.
Yes.
Who did that?
Huh, your president.
Not my president.
Either way.
All realtors should lower their commission to help American people buy homes. Bill, did you get that?
Yeah, I saw.
Thank you.
So, with this, utilize the tools that are being provided, even if they're being used for the buyers. Put them in your arsenal. Put them in every listing package you go on and tell them why it's in there. You gain nothing. You're not making the extra 3%, 2%, 1%, 0.5%. You have no gain to them, and you can tell them that verbally. Look, I'm not gaining anything by showing you these things. I'm showing you the reality and how the potential of not offering is going to harm your sale of your home. Statistically, look at these numbers, because you can still pull the MLS numbers right now. Let me tell you, any stats you're pulling showing days on market with lower commissions being paid out, hold on to those listing forms and save them. And here's why. When that disappears, you will no longer be able to search it the same way. You will never be able to see what was paid out, because that field is going to disappear. Hold on to those forms so that you can show them, look, this is what happened. Who cares if it was from a year ago? It's still the same outcome. Margaret.
Can we, I'm not really good at that, or I haven't really tried to see how you can pull it out, but that would be a great sheet that we could use, and then just to Dan,
right.
just to show, this is, by the way, this is what's gonna happen.
Yeah, you can.
And we're not able to search by commission. Okay, you're not able to go into the MLS and search that. They removed that field quite some time ago, understandably, right? RealComp was trying to get ahead of some of this at that time. But what you still can do is pull your days on market. Take your little eyeballs and start scoping out the commission portion of the percentages being paid out, and put them and save them into your carts and do what you need to do. Do not print those out, save them as a file, do what you need to do, hold on to it, put it in your packages. It will be a benefit for you. It's a huge benefit when you're sitting in front of a seller. And yes, we will have the ones that you go through all of this and you show them 5 million reasons and they're still not willing to do it, and it is what it is. You either choose to take the listing or you don't. And I mean, you're getting paid still. It'd be foolish for you to probably not take the listing, right? At the end of the day, okay? This is how you make a living.
And you're gonna work just because they say at the beginning that they're not willing to pay a commission. When somebody like Margaret comes to them, who's a strong buyer's agent, and presents them with an offer that it's built into, are they really gonna counter over that issue?
No, if the money's all come out the way they need to be.
Yep, probably not.
No.
So
the likelihood is no. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Especially if this market levels out a little bit.
Yep.
You will see this be less of an issue very, very, very quickly. Danny.
Nick taught me about 40 years ago. He said, hey, what are you talking about all this 6% stuff, man? Tell those people if they want to sell their house, pay 7%.
Do yourself a favor. Pull out the listings that have offered, quick market time. It'll also take you a little bit to feed through. who's offered over 3% and how quickly those sold. You have ways to show your facts. You have ways to show your worth and your value. Now, however, if they're not willing to pay the buyer's commission, are they harming you directly? No, you're not being harmed. You're still getting your compensation.
If it sells.
If it sells. Yes, and you have, and that may be a conversation to have. Okay, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you do not want to offer compensation out to the buyer. I'm going to, what type of, I'm a little concerned about my marketing. These are things you have to think about of what you're willing to spend on a listing and how far you're willing to go. Now, you still have a duty to do everything you can to sell that home, but are you gonna spend $5,000 on the forefront if it's $1 million listing to get them into some books and do some fun things or whatever it may be? No, you may not. Rethink your strategies a little bit, okay? It's not doom and gloom. This is not doom and gloom. This is just a pivot. It's a pivot, and education is going to be everything for all of the examples I've been giving you for the last 2 weeks. The examples that we just talked about lenders, no offense, Tanya, because you were amazing. This, like every like every industry, we have people that shouldn't be there. There's a million realtors that shouldn't be there, and we all know it, and I'm going to give you an example in a moment. I saw a hand. Nick.
When I first got into business, I worked for this guy. He was a pit bull of pit bulls, okay? And he used to say, it's my time against their money. So if they wouldn't play the game with you, then you got a year listing.
Yep.
Okay? And depending on their motivation to sell,
and you can say, hey, go ahead.
That few $1,000s is enough. And they'll play your game.
Carrying costs, costs of maintenance. Are you going into summer where you're going to be cutting the grass every week? Your water bill is going to be ran up because your sprinkler systems are running every single day or 3 times a day, whatever it may be. Your pool that has to be maintained, cleaned, opened and closed, because that usually in that price range, they're not maintaining their pools themselves. Okay, these are things to think about. Use those tools. You're going to have to think and dissect things a little bit differently, but it's all there for you. So here's an example. We're gonna see, like we want, people are gonna be weeding out. Local lender took on a buyer last minute with a purchase agreement that needed to close quickly. Calls the buyer's agent who's representing the buyer. You know what the buyer's agent answered the phone? What? I'm on a golf course in Florida. What do you want? I'm sorry, I represent your client. I'm here to touch base and introduce myself. Well, what do you need? I'm on a golf course. The buyer's agent had sent the wrong purchase agreement to the lender. The lender started the file because nobody knew any differently. Nobody said any differently, even though the buyer, get this is even better. The buyer's a lender themselves. The buyer didn't even see that the wrong purchase agreement was sent. Let them weed out. Don't feel badly about that. Bye-bye.
Sloppy.
Yep. What needed to be closed very quickly ends up having to be a MSHDA file, which takes even longer, okay? Be cognizant of who you're working with. Pay attention, because let me tell you, there's some ding-dongs out there right now. That's embarrassing. That's embarrassing. That's why we are so hard on our standards and our professionalism. That is not who we are. That was not in this office. That was in a county east. That is not here. Do not ever answer the phone. What? I'm on a golf course. We'll have a problem. Elaine.
When you're talking to that seller, just remind them, their house isn't free and clear. They're making that monthly payment.
Yes.
They're paying property taxes.
Yes.
They're paying, aside from their other, utilities and what have you. So, it's gonna all add up.
All right, oh, it's 10:30, guys. I'm sorry, but this is good stuff. Bill, do we want to push this into next week for our company meeting?
Yeah.
Sorry, guys, it's 10:30. I know you probably need to go. Real quick, I want to run through, just give me a moment because this is on the same topic. A really great article came out in the last 24, 36 hours from Butch Husky. If you don't know who Butch Husky is, he is a previous Coldwell banker, high up guy. Really, actually, he's a really solid individual, and now he's running Sotheby's. He has a really great outlook on some of this. The settlement forces, okay, so here's the truths. These are facts and myths. The settlement forces brokers to reduce their compensation. False. It no way establishes that, and we have said that 100 times. I'm gonna breeze through this. I'll send it to you. Okay, it'll be a link. It'll be a link because it's got a lot of advertisements in it because of where it comes from, okay? The settlement will, for the first time, allow sellers to no longer pay compensation for an agent bringing the buyer. False. We've already discussed why. The settlement prohibits sellers from paying a commission to a buyer's agent and relieves sellers of the financial burden. False. Settlement will serve to meaningfully lower prices and make homeownership affordable again. False. You think that measly $10, $20, $30, $50,000 makes it affordable again? No. Interest rates do. Outside forces do. What you're paying in taxes do. This is a very small part of the pie. The settlement is a win for buyers who will now be able to negotiate the fee for representation. Now that one's questionable, okay? The settlement will result in significant restitution to a consumer who was harmed over recent years by realtors. False. Y'all didn't harm anybody, did ya? No, you didn't. A couple of idiots did. We all know this is driven from outside forces that don't even include the way we're being told, considering where compensation is allowed to be put. Think about that, okay? Everyone would like to see costs lowered, yet I do not see the Department of Justice going after attorneys or other professionals we wish would charge less. Sorry, Bill, we love you.
Good.
No one told them to lower their fees.
This is free enterprise, okay? You're allowed to set your fee that you charge. You're allowed to decide if you work with somebody or not. If you get a buyer lead who's willing to not play ball and you tried and you tried and tried, are you gonna waste your time? You shouldn't. Unless you think you convert it over. Think about it, because how many times have you ran out? Let's be honest, how many times on dead leads have you ran out? A lot. It happens. So think a little differently, okay? I'll send this out, we'll get this over to you. We'll get to this stuff. Okay, well, you're excused. We'll see you later. We're overwhelmed. This is a big meeting today. Class is dismissed. We'll get to
Yeah.
Do we have time for lunch?
Thank you for everything. When it rains, it pours, huh? Long meeting. I did not realize how quick it ran. But nobody was getting up and leaving, so